despite all the turmoil this offseason, all the ups and downs, specifically surrounding superstar talent, Giants had a need that you might not have thought was so important, but they finally addressed that need. We'll get into what it was next.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily San Francisco Giants podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Giants, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. My name is Ben Kaspick, and on this show we provide episodes 3 days a week for now, back to 5 when pitchers and catchers report, which is coming up pretty soon here, talking about the San Francisco Giants in a way that's data-driven and rational, but also simple, passionate, and accessible to all. I'm a former contributor for the baseball statistics and analysis websites Beyond the Box Score and Rotographs. I've been podcasting about the Giants since 2015. And I'm a lifelong fan. Thank you for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get podcasts. And this episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. And yeah, the Giants, you might think of their biggest need as star talent. And in a way, you're right. But if you're talking about okay, they're about to enter the 2023 season. Certainly, pitchers and catchers are reporting in just a couple of weeks here. And you look at the catcher position for the San Francisco Giants, and it is just not secure enough. When you look at, okay, you've got Joey Bart, former top prospect, number 2 overall pick, but has struggled in the major leagues by and large. A lot of swing and miss, a lot of strikeouts, sometimes seeming overwhelmed by the task. There's just no doubt he's had his struggles, right? Even though if you want to believe in the upside, that's fine, and I understand that. But then you look beyond that, and who are the other catchers who are on the 40-man roster? Well, there's only one, and his name is Blake Sabol, and is he even a catcher? He's a guy who has learned catching at, I think, the professional level. He's not historically been a catcher, and he also has 0 major league experience. He was a Rule 5 pick by the Cincinnati Reds, and the Giants traded for him. And so by rule, he has to be on the major league roster all year or else they offer him back. But Rule 5 picks almost never stick on the team, especially a team like the Giants that's trying to contend now. If you're the, Oakland A's and you're going to lose 100 games or whatever, maybe, whatever team that's horrible and going to lose a ton, you can afford to keep these guys on your roster even if they go through their struggles. But for the Giants, if Sabol struggles, what do? And then Austin Wynns, he was on the 40-man, but they DFA'd him earlier in the offseason. He did accept a outright assignment to AAA or to the minors, and so he's going to be in camp, but he's not on the 40-man. And so the catcher position just remained a big, not issue, but a big unknown for the Giants going into 2023, and especially you need more than one, right? Yeah, you can just hand the job to Bart, but A, he could struggle. B, he needs a backup, and so who is it going to be? And so finally, to get to the point, the Giants made a move, so we have heard, signing catcher Roberto Pérez. We have no idea what the terms are. It's just been reported by a Boston-based reporter who says that the Red Sox made an aggressive pitch to bring in Perez. We also know that the Cubs and the Pirates were also interested in Roberto Pérez. And so, yeah, this is Chris Cotillo of the Springfield Republican. That's not the guy I remember. This is, anyway, reporting this news. And so anyway, what are they getting in Roberto Pérez? Roberto Pérez is a really good defensive catcher. Good arm, good pop time, good pop times, good framing, and leadership qualities. And so I think that it's just really important that they shored this up. I'm very curious to see whether it's a major league deal or a minor league deal with an invitation to spring training. The fact that there was competition from a team like the Red Sox they don't have a very settled catcher position themselves suggests to me that it may be a major league deal. But the fact that Farhan Zaidi was out there talking about how they were very unlikely to sign a catcher basically to a major league contract. He said this a week prior to the news of this reported signing coming out. So that suggests to me that it's probably a minor league deal. And if it is a minor league deal, then the way that would work is that there would be a competition. And I think it's like a wide open competition, including for the starting job. Because yes, it's really important that Joey Bart gets opportunities. Like, as long as your alternatives are guys like Wynns and Roberto Pérez and Blake Sabol, who are, a combination of, what you're going to get, and it's just good defense but bad hitting. Or maybe with Sabol, maybe there's hope that there's some bat there, but you don't necessarily know that you're going to get great defense behind the plate. So I understand the importance, if those are your other options, of just letting Joey Bart sink or swim. But at the same time, having a sturdy presence like Roberto Pérez, who very much could be an everyday type of catcher because of the defense and the leadership. This is one of those things where the numbers don't actually do the best job of kind of supporting the importance of the role of a catcher, in that they're the leaders of a pitching staff. And so if you lose like the confidence and belief from your pitchers, that's very much a problem. And so Roberto Pérez, having a guy who's just universally kind of respected for his defensive ability by pitchers, is huge. And so I quite like this signing. He has dealt with quite a few injuries over the past several years, but when he's been on the field, he's been one of the better defensive catchers around. And actually, he's hit left-handed pitching pretty decently. And so, again, this has not been kind of confirmed. The team certainly hasn't announced it, but I would be very interested to see what the final terms end up being for Roberto Pérez. And so I think, low key, it was one of their most significant needs just heading into spring training, right? Pitchers and catchers reporting before anyone else. And so getting this done before pitchers show up, have your catchers in place, I thought was pretty important. So coming up in just a minute, more prospect talk. Kyle Harrison and Marco Luciano continue to come in ranked really, really highly when looking at some of these top 100 lists that have come out in the last several days. So we'll get into where they rank in MLB Pipeline and according to Keith Law in just a minute. But before we do, this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. This year, the only app you need at your Super Bowl party is FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. We are really, really excited about our new sports betting partner for Locked On, because they're the #1 sportsbook in America, and it's FanDuel. And if you're new to FanDuel, that's even better. They have so many great features that make betting on sports fun and easy. Download FanDuel now so you can bet Super Bowl 57 with a no-sweat first bet. You'll get up to $3,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. FanDuel lets you bet on everything from the money line to point spreads to who will score a touchdown. For me, obviously being a baseball guy, I'm looking at Rookie of the Year stuff, and right now some of this doesn't make sense, to be honest. Marco Luciano is at plus 3,500, and yet I don't think he's even going to debut this year, and nobody really should think that. But guess who's even lower odds than Marco Luciano? Kyle Harrison at plus 4,200, and he could debut early in the season. And so, look, he'd probably be on an innings limit, so he's not going to go out there and throw 200 innings. But Kyle Harrison is the type of guy, it doesn't make sense at all that he would be ranked below Harrison here, or below Luciano. So at plus 4,200, I might make a little bet there on Kyle Harrison as the Rookie of the Year. The FanDuel Sportsbook app is safe, secure, super easy to use. Best of all, you can get paid your winnings instantly. So join FanDuel today at FanDuel.com/LockedOn to claim your no-sweat first bet on Super Bowl 57. That's FanDuel.com/LockedOn. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, as promised, we are going to continue to discuss like the prospect rankings, because as we have said, these were going to come out over the next several weeks. We said that a couple weeks ago, and they've come out, and by and large, the Giants are not featuring, they're not featuring a lot of players on the top 100 lists by these different publications, but what they are getting is really good rankings for Marco Luciano and Kyle Harrison. Now, Baseball America, which for whatever reason gets like more hype than some of these other sources like Baseball Prospectus, which had both Luciano and Harrison in the top 20. Baseball America had them in like the 30s, and we've talked at length about how this is a very inexact science. And I think it's something that's due for a little bit more of a scientific approach versus the way we do it now, I mean, imagine if we had no statistics in baseball and you just every year you had people coming out with the top 100 players in the game, but they weren't basing it on like statistics. They were just basing it off of, well, I've watched him and he was better than him. It's just very unscientific the way these are done. And I get it because you're projecting to the majors from the minors and it's hard to do that. But I think that we should like look back historically and see which of these publications is the best and what are they the best at? I don't know. That's a project for another day. But anyway, the Giants, we'll start with Keith Law because I have that pulled up here first. This is on The Athletic. And guess what? Kyle Harrison ranked number 12 among all prospects in baseball, ranked as the number 2 pitching prospect in the game behind Yuri Perez of the Miami Marlins. And a lot of other publications have a few other pitchers ahead of Kyle Harrison. Like I just said with FanDuel, I mean, this is a guy who's ranked by Keith Law here as the number 12 prospect in the game, and he's probably going to debut next year. Why would he be below Marco Luciano in terms of Rookie of the Year odds? So, yeah, Kyle Harrison comes in at number 12, which is obviously a great ranking. And then coming in at number 21 is Marco Luciano. So despite the difficult season for Marco Luciano, which was mostly due to a low back strain, I believe is the specific way that they're categorizing that injury, he came back and he wasn't the same. But before the low back strain, he was having a big year in High A Eugene. And he's probably going to start in Double A. But anyway, this is just now, Baseball America is now looking like the outlier when we look at Baseball Prospectus. We look at Keith Law, and we're going to look at MLB Pipeline in a second, coming out with these rankings that all kind of have a consensus that Luciano and Harrison are top 20 prospects in the game. And so that is obviously a good thing for the San Francisco Giants to have a couple of top 20. Obviously, you'd like to have more guys. Like some teams, the Dodgers come to mind. They've got like 6, 7 guys in the top 100. But again, it's an inexact science, and a down year for a lot of guys in the system led to that. And having a good year can lead to more guys being ranked in the top 100. And I also continue to point out guys like Logan Webb and Camilo Doval, they never appeared in top 100 prospects lists. And so that's just all you need to know. Like it's not an exact science at all. But according to MLB Pipeline, by the way, which is the MLB.com, like the official league prospect engine, they've got Kyle Harrison as the number 18 prospect in baseball and Marco Luciano at number 22. And so, yes, you'd like to have more guys in the top 100. I believe one of them, I think it might have been MLB Pipeline. No, maybe somebody had Casey Schmidt. I think maybe Baseball Prospectus had him in the top 100 as well. But what's exciting about this is that these guys are finally getting closer. And Schmidt, the Giants are quite high on. And so even if the ranking publications don't have Schmidt as a consensus top 100 guy, the Giants seem to view him that way. But for Harrison to have a guy who's like a top 15, top 10 type prospect, 15, I guess, who's right on the doorstep of the majors is a big deal and a good thing. And for Luciano, I mean, he's been a top prospect in their system for so long. But if he has like a normal, healthy year in 2023, he'll probably go into 2024 as 2024 being the obvious kind of debut season for Marco Luciano. So we're getting closer with these guys, and I just think it's so important. So coming up in just a minute, we're actually going to switch gears, and I want to discuss outfield defense, or just the Giants' defense at large. It's kind of a random topic in the scheme of all these other topics, but it's something I've been wanting to discuss. Just the Giants were so bad defensively last year. Did they do enough to upgrade the defense going into 2023? So we'll get to that in just a minute. But before we do, this episode is brought to you by Built Bar. Are you looking for a delicious treat but don't want all the fat and calories? Then you gotta try a Built Bar. We just got through the holidays, and I know my goal is always to eat healthier. And if you like me and you want to do that, but you don't want to compromise taste, then I've got just the thing for you. You've got to try Built. With Built, healthy is actually tasty. Seriously, they're so delicious, you will not think they're good for you. That I promise you. It's perfect for that New Year's resolution. They've got incredible flavors like churro, peanut butter brownie, coconut almond. I'm not sure how Built Bar does it, but they taste like a candy bar, but come in with healthy macros like 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, and a whopping 17 grams of protein. And now you don't have to wait for your box from Built.com. You can go into Walmart, head to the pharmacy section, grab yourself a box of Built bars, or you can go to Sam's Club and grab a 13-bar box with hit flavors like brownie batter and churro. Believe me, you can thank me later. All right, as promised, we are going to briefly, I just wanted to mention something that I tweeted out a couple days ago that just kind of caught my eye, because I've seen some stuff written and said basically that the Giants didn't fix their defense at all this offseason. Maybe I'm over analyzing what I read. Certainly the infield has some questions, but if you look at like outs above average, which is using like StatCast data, and you can just simply go to baseballsavant.com and view outs above average and by position for each team, and also by like outfield versus infield. And if you look at that, the infield defense for the Giants was negative outs above average. It was like -7. But that's not a ton of outs below average, right? Where they really got slammed, at least according to outs above average, but another number like defensive runs saved backs this up as well. Where they really got slammed was in the outfield, where the likes of Jock Peterson and Darren Ruff for much of the season were just huge negatives. And then like a combination of a lot of guys getting exposure out there who probably shouldn't have, like Yermin Mercedes, for example, which was disastrous. But the outfield was more of a problem. And so that's why it's interesting to look at Michael Conforto and Mitch Haniger, who they didn't have anybody depart in the outfield. Think about their free agents. They didn't lose anybody. They just added a couple guys. And so these guys figure to take over those spots. And so you're removing Jock Peterson. They already removed Darren Ruff with a trade last year. And you're adding in 2 guys in Conforto and Haniger. If you look at their overall defensive numbers, I think that's not the right way to do it. You've got to look at what have they done when they've not been in center, because both of these guys have played some center, and that's where any kind of negative defense has come from them. In the corners, in their careers, Conforto has played 4,600 to 60 innings, and Haniger has played 3,877 innings in the corners. And for Conforto, he's at +13 defensive runs saved in the corners, +10 outs above average, and +4.5 ultimate zone rating. So I could do a whole episode explaining what these numbers mean, but basically outs above average is outs above average. Defensive runs saved and ultimate zone rating are in runs above average. So anyway, to be positive is good. To be negative means below average. To be 0 is average, based on the position you're playing. And for Haniger in his career, +22 defensive runs saved in the corners, -3 outs above average. Little discrepancy there, which happens sometimes, and don't totally know how to explain it, but it's just worth pointing out and looking at. And +4.3 ultimate zone rating, i.e. 4.3 runs above average. So look, these guys aren't 23 anymore. They're pushing 30, or in Haniger's case, a little bit above that. And in some cases, Haniger, he's had some injuries and he's slowed down his sprint speed. And so looking at the career numbers doesn't necessarily mean this is who they are now. But the Giants have said they believe that these guys are healthy. Obviously, Conforto had a year off his legs, and so he's been talking about how he feels really, really fresh with his legs. And they've said they believe Haniger is like fully healthy from the leg issues he's had in the recent past. And so it's just worth pointing out, you've got 2 guys who have been above average defenders in the corners, and then you've got Yastrzemski, who's been an above average center fielder. And so I think at the very least, you're looking at an outfield defense that, if these guys are healthy, which is a big if, is probably average. And that's a huge improvement. If you look at what are the numbers for their outfield defense last year, we're talking like, when we're talking in terms of runs above average, we're talking like -45-ish runs above average by some metrics like defensive runs saved. So just to get to 0, you're literally talking about adding 45 runs to your team. And so that translates a lot. And I don't know, I'm not saying, yes, they're the best defense in the league now, but going from horrible to decent to slightly above average, perhaps, in the outfield is a big deal. And so they kind of low-key did address this, but health is a big thing. Like if Haniger and Conforto get hurt, then you're putting Peterson back out there, or Lamont Wade or Tyro Estrada or something. So anyway, just wanted to point that out. Anyway, that is all the time we have for today. Thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. For your second listen, check out Locked On MLB Prospects. Host Lindsey Crosby is a prospect encyclopedia, and he's going deep on the MLB stars of tomorrow. It's free and available wherever you get podcasts. Once again, my name is Ben Kaspick. Check me out on Twitter at Ben Kaspick, Kaspick. If you like this show, please consider rating it or leaving a review. It helps me out a lot, so thanks in advance. And thank you to everyone who's done so already. Coming up later this week, we're going to look at those Zips projections for pitchers for the Giants. We looked at hitters last week, pitchers coming up later this week, and also a mailbag. So be on the lookout for that. Thanks again for listening. You are now Locked On Giants.